today's masterclass is all about your omnichannel strategy. So focusing on how to launch on e-commerce. So the agenda, I'm just going to move that so it's not in my way. So 4 topics pretty much. And at the end, there's going to be a 15-minute question time in case anyone hasn't already heard that conversation that we've just had between Jenny and I. So the first bit, we're going to get stuck into what does omnichannel actually mean? Because it's important that you actually understand that first. Second is to actually know, are you ready? So is your fashion brand actually ready to grow into third-party e-commerce? So we'll touch on that in detail. And then how to find the right platform. So it's really important that, again, you don't just do this on a whim. You do this with a strategy, with an actual purpose. So you're focused and you'll have a better success rate that way. And then the very last one is 10 sales channels that you should be selling your fashion brand on. Cool. So again, I just need to move my head. Whoops. So yeah, pretty much I've just, how I like to say it, I guess 2020 more so was all about direct to consumer, which is still important. It's still extremely important that you have your focus with your customer via your own platforms. But really in 2021, we saw a huge change into the importance again of selling your brand via other channels. So by that, I mean, there was an interest that went back into wholesale, for example, because that really died a death in 2020. So really this workshop is all about that. This masterclass rather is encouraging you that you still need to have your direct to consumer channels, but you really need to focus on what other channels in this omni-channel strategy that you can pretty much invest in that will help bring a return for yourself. So very quickly, I'm Carly, and I don't know if I think I've mentioned it to Jenny, but my previous business was called Unzipped. It's exactly the same business, but I've actually recently rebranded to be Carly Johnson, so my name. So that business was actually launched in Feb 2019, so I've been doing it for near enough a couple of years. I'm based in Melbourne. So what do I do? I'm kind of split into 2. So the main focus really of recent has been actually online fashion education. So that's via my own online courses that I write and host, paired back with coaching, but also I'm a fashion entrepreneur lecturer at college in Singapore, as well as a couple of unis and colleges in Melbourne. So aside from that, just so you know why I'm giving this presentation, I've had quite a detailed background in fashion wholesale. So I am English, as you can tell. So I've worked at New Look for 5 years, and that was actually setting up their wholesale division. And then more recently in 2017, I had a large job of doing the same at Forever New in Melbourne. And then prior to that, I've worked at Miss Selfridge. I had a stint at DVF in New York. My background, actually, I was a textile designer. So I'm talking from quite a heavy background in the fashion industry. So not just from one angle, from quite a few different angles. But yeah, I love fashion wholesale is the kind of tagline I could say for myself. So you know a bit more about me. Let's crack on. So the first topic is talking about what a good omnichannel strategy looks like for fashion brands. So really, a few of you may know, a few of you may not know, but omnichannel is a multi-channeled approach to sales that seeks to provide customers with a seamless shopping experience. So this is whether they're online, they want to go to a store, they're on their mobile, they're doing it on the telephone. So think of all of the different ways that you can sell to your customers. So you're wanting to create a multi-channeled approach. So why this is important. So there's loads of obviously statistics I could throw at you, but this is just simply one. So customers who shop across multi-channels bring in a 30% higher lifetime value. So really, as a fashion brand, you really need to be focusing on your return on investment in loads of different aspects of your business. But this statistic is pretty much quite clearly telling you that you don't just want to be sat at home selling your fashion brand on your own website. You really do need to be tapping into this multi-channel approach because it will actually create customers that will have a higher spend with you. So it will be worth your while. So it's digging into it a bit more, because that's what topic 1 is, talking about what actually is omnichannel. So what you're wanting to do in this strategy, you're wanting to pretty much write a strategy where you're thinking of what the channels can you have? How can you have these multiple touch points with your customers that give them a seamless customer journey? So one example of that that's really obvious, could you do click and collect? Could you actually partner with a store? Could you partner with a postal service, something that enables a customer to collect your clothing, your fashion brand, or whatever it might be, at a local retailer? That could be a way of doing it. It's streamlining the virtual and the physical, as just mentioned, and it's doing, personalized, clever ways. So really within the omnichannel, it's not just you sat there thinking, okay, I just want to sell, and go for the hard sell. It's thinking of how you can pare back the experience, how you can pare back your communication, how you can just make this effortless for your customer. Because really, as fashion brands, that's what you're wanting to do. You want to make it so easy. If you ever put a hurdle in your customer's way, they're likely to trip up and then they won't make the transaction. So really just think that's what omnichannel is in the most simplistic sense that I can explain it to you. So what I'm going to specifically touch on today, I'm not going to talk about stores. I'm not going to talk about click and collect. I'm going to really focus on how you can use different channels, so different sales channels, to your advantage within this omnichannel approach, because that's kind of that is my expertise. So really within that's wholesale in a traditional sense, as well as an e-commerce sense, and marketplaces, because they are 2 different operating models. So hopefully that makes a bit more sense. So creating an omnichannel experience means that you're wanting to create the exact same experience that you would do on your own website as you would on any other channel. So really, you want to make sure that the customer knows it's you. You want your brand tone of voice to come across. You want your same promises. You want to have the same branding. You don't want to alienate them, that they question to say, is this legit? Is this brand like the same? Because they look very different. So it's really important that you actually have the same communication, look and feel, the whole user experience that you would do on your own website, that's the exact same on any single channel that you sell on. So obviously that's, you might be thinking, come on, Carly, that's easier said than done. But that's really important for you, that if you strike a deal, say with Amazon, let's go for the scary one, and it's important then for you to actually work with the account manager or whoever it may be, to actually make sure you can customize your page as much as possible, to make sure that it is customized to look like your brand. It's got the look and feel how you would work. So it's kind of in your shoes to make that happen. So why is it important, to go back to the kind of main point again? So you're really, you're really wanting to not hinder your growth in your fashion brand. You're wanting to expand and to actually benefit from having channels and touching customers in different ways that you would not just be able to do on your website. Your website would require a lot of traffic, you'd require a lot of marketing spend, etc. But if you use other channels, you actually could benefit from reaching a customer that you would never ever be able to get via your own website. So thinking of again, an example, you'll have the typical Amazon shopper that they like to go on there. They are an Amazon Prime member. They pretty much just like that huge multi-product platform that is Amazon. Therefore, that's not really, I'm assuming it's not going to fit into your niche, into your customer type. But so therefore, if you're present on all of these different channels that still sit back within your brand DNA, then you're going to actually tap into, gain a whole new customer that wouldn't naturally just stumble across your brand on your own website. So that's really why it's so important. You have a huge opportunity to use these different channels to actually gain new customers as well as gaining new sales. So just think of it in that way. Actually, if you're investing in a new channel, i.e. a partnership with ASOS or something, that's like a marketing spend. So see it in that way. It's a new way to acquire a customer. So don't be scared by a potential investment like that. See it as a benefit. So benefits, I think I've mentioned this, but something else, just for obviously I'm encouraging you to consider this. So the more units, the more orders that you get through, the lower your cost price can be. So again, more channels that you open your brand up to being sold on, then you can actually lower your cost price. So see it as a benefit like that. Of course, you're going to increase your sales. It's going to set you apart from your competitors. So that's another way of thinking about it. So you will know who your competitors are. You'll know exactly where they're selling, what their offer is, etc. So if you can actually get onto new channels ahead of them and really stand out and do something different, then you're going to attract the audience that you really want. And they're going to think, wow, to you, but probably not to your competitors. So think of it like that. The more channels you're on, the more data you can get. So again, a huge positive benefit of an omni-channel. So you'll always have data to be able to collect and learn from. And this can then potentially help your fashion brand to launch in a new market, for example. So say, if you're based in the UK, you want to sell at Zalando, which is based in Germany, you can learn about the German market via working with Zalando. So you'll gain all of this really interesting data that will help you to evolve and to grow your fashion brand. And yeah, pretty much other things as mentioned, back to the original point, higher customer retention, but that's only if you offer this seamless customer journey. So you make it so easy for them to buy with you because you've got, loads of different options for them to choose to shop on the right channel that suits them or click and collect, etc. So there are loads of benefits. So examples, it always makes a lot more sense when we go through some examples. So an obvious one. So you may be aware of this because you're all in the industry anyway, but some really obvious brands, Mango, Vera Moda. So these brands actually are heavily known for selling a hell of a lot through wholesale, through marketplaces, but primarily a lot of these brands have expanded their sales channels by working with major platforms around the world. So Mango is probably, again, on so many, like it's in the Middle East, it's all across Europe, across Russia, and that's actually through third-party e-commerce. So it really doesn't rely on just its own direct consumer channels. It's using third-party platforms to expand and grow. So that's the most obvious example I can give you for now. A next one is you can think outside of the box. So this is obviously we're talking fashion today, this is beauty, but this is just another example of actually the true meaning of omnichannel. It's how you can get your product in front of customers and allow them to try it, to test it before they actually buy into it. So that was the whole reason that Benefit did their brow bar, was to just simply get bums on the seats and for them to experience their product before they bought into it. So think inventively of how you can actually get in front of your customers. COVID aside right now, think bigger picture, but challenge yourself to actually do pop-up events or do more wearer trials or events where you're a sponsor for a catwalk or something. Another one, which again, dependent on your budget and your size, and obviously this could be in the next 5-year plan, but again, think outside of the box. So this is an example of when Topshop, this was actually a fair few years back, when they partnered with London Fashion Week, and they very strategically had billboards that had digital advertising that actually, when their catwalk show was happening at London Fashion Week, they had the clothes. So that outfit you can see there is broken down into shoppable items. And you can literally go on there and you can shop it and you can go and collect it in a store that's around the corner in 10 minutes. So this is bigger picture thinking again. But again, this is talking collaboration. How can you collaborate with your fashion brand with a click and collect idea, or with, again, an event that gets your product out there in a really simple way that your barcode could be scanned and it can be literally place an order, off you go. And that's just somebody literally walking down the street, going to work. It's really clever, and you're not relying on generating traffic to your website. Another one, which I don't know if this is my last example, but Nike, another huge brand, really obvious. So years ago, they were heavily reliant on wholesale, and they've actually moved away from that as an operating model. And Nike just know so much about their customers now because they have got their training app. So they have got all of this data coming in. But aside from that, the reason they've got this data coming in is because they've built this epic community. So Nike are giving away free training. So like free fitness advice, free workout, free nutrition, everything that happens in this app is literally spot on for their customer. So for you in your fashion brand, you could be doing something that, it could be maternity. Let's go for an obvious one. So you could be building this community that is all about giving away free content, free information, that it's educating them, building this, happy, fun, educational community of which at times you get to pitch and talk about your product, but that's not the sole purpose. So again, challenge yourself of how in different manners of omnichannel you can actually build different ways in which to sell. But in this specific example of community, it's not your sole focus. It's about building a community, I guess. I'm probably repeating myself way too many times then, sorry. So hopefully those examples, my explanation of talking about omnichannel has resonated. You've got some inspiration, you're understanding the opportunity around an omnichannel strategy. So really the next thing. So these questions are just, prompts to you, things to get your kind of juices flowing, so to speak. So think of, do any of these relate to you? Are these options that you can actually start to investigate and see if it's possible for you? But really for you and your own fashion brand, you really need to be the decider of, who is my target audience? How can I captivate them in a different way that doesn't rely them to come to my website organically? So really just sit there, go back to your customer avatar, really understanding who they are, and start to think of your own personal capabilities. And this will start to build out your strategy. So, think next 6 months, year, 3 years, but really just start to write it down on the paper and always thinking of your customer first. Great. So the goal of this masterclass, back to the purpose as I kind of outlined at the beginning, is really for me, I've given you an understanding of omnichannel from everything I know. The next few slides or next 3 topics are really going to go deeper into actually omnichannel, but focusing on third-party e-commerce. So that's really what I want to give away to you guys today is everything I know about how to do that and how to do it successfully. So that's going to be the next few topics, is really delving deep into that area. So let's get going. Topic 2. How to know if your fashion brand is ready to approach third-party e-commerce. So this is critical. So first, what is third-party e-commerce? So that's something that I call it. Obviously, everybody has different names, but really it is not your website. It is somebody else's website. So the most obvious examples, again, Next, ASOS, Zalando, The Iconic in Australia, pretty much another website that's not yours. So on the screen's a very simple explanation of different ways, showing wholesale, showing marketplace. So wholesale, you're selling to the business. In marketplace, you're selling to the customer. So that's just the difference in the models. So on the screen are, again, some very well-known marketplaces, third-party, e-commerce sites. So these are just some of the powerhouses. These are ones that you should be striving for. And really, again, as long as you can answer, are you ready? These are fantastic platforms. I think some of them I may need some may need updating, but yeah, they are all fantastic powerhouses. So how do you answer if you're ready? So this is literally going to be a step-by-step process that I'm going to walk you through. So take notes. Hopefully you can have this to follow after. But yeah, the first one. So you need to answer these questions honestly, is just what I'm encouraging you to do. So the biggest one first to know if you're ready to grow, are you established enough? So what do I mean by that? You have to kind of sit back as a brand and say, did I launch last week? Have I learned enough about my own brand? Do I really know who my customer is? Is it actually different to what I thought it was going to be? Like, really, how? And you don't have to be established, like, you've been here for 5 years and you're making, tens of thousands every single month. It doesn't have to be about those types of statistics. It really has to be a case of, could you confidently stand up in front of a room and really start to say, I'm a game changer because I have done XYZ that is beneficial to my customer versus my competitors, or some different scenario that you truly do know who you are and you truly know that customer is shopping you. So you really need to have a point of difference, and yeah, just to really again know that you could really pitch yourself quite confidently and with some data to back yourself up. So an example, this is a brand that I've worked with here in Australia. So these guys, they, back in October 2020, no press coverage, minimal social media followers and coverage. What they were striving for didn't really match back to what they had as their brand identity. They weren't really sure of who they were. They would stand up and say, oh, we're urban, we're streetwear, we're this, that, and the other. But actually, was this being correlated in their imagery, in their styling, in really, their direction of their content? The answer was no. It was quite confusing. So again, going back to this point of, could you stand up on a stage and say exactly who you are succinctly, and it would be recognized by your product, your tone of voice, your website? So with some work back to who they wanted to be, which was this urban street style, they've actually done an overhaul of their branding, of their photography, of their model usage, etc. So this now has a far greater link back to actually their DNA, who they are. So again, in my question to you, do you really know who you are? Could you succinctly say, this is who I am, this is my product, this is my look and feel? You have to really nail this and not have kind of the weak link holding you back. So the next question, it does unfortunately come to budget. So moving into third-party e-commerce, so specifically wholesale, you do need to have some cash flow spare to invest in it. So a few things to call out are, you're likely to make 20% wholesale margin. So it is minimal of actually what you will make, because a lot of these platforms, they could ask for anything from 60% retail price discount. From 60 to 80% is kind of the going rate, dependent on your category and a few other factors. But it's a huge wedge that they take off your retail price. So that's just me calling out that what you make is slim, but once you've made it, it's pure profit. They will, give you 20% of the total order. But there's no returns. It's sale outright if we're talking wholesale. One other thing within talking budget and cash flow, you really need to, before going into third-party e-commerce, really look at your global pricing strategy, because that has a direct impact to how much money you make. So you might be thinking, come on, Carly, that's a silly one. Just go on to Google and look at, retail price GBP to euro. Definitely not. You need to actually consider, how much is it going to cost, in addition for you to get to that country? What's their duty? What's their VAT? you really need to look at what are your competitors doing? How are they pricing that same skirt on their website versus what they're, say, pricing on Zalando, for example? So really dig down into building a strategy, not just taking a like for like, seeing, can I up price my product to cover some of the costs that it'll cost me to go into that market. So really do, for every single market that you go into, really check and write your pricing strategy. And when you then sell it to the platform, you would talk their language. You would sell to Zalando in euros. You would sell to Australia in, Australian dollar, for example. Other things to call out, which you may be very aware of, with wholesale specifically, you're highly likely to have to pay for the whole of the manufacturing before you get paid by the wholesale customer. A lot of wholesale customers, if you're lucky, hardly happen. So I probably won't even mention it. Most wholesale customers, it's 90 to 120 days that they will pay you after they receive your order. So it's a very long time. And that's something, again, that you need to have in your cash flow, that you're able to pay for it before you receive the money. Other things, I've kind of mentioned these, but this goes back to your global pricing strategy. Just be really aware of the costs of going into a new market. Make sure that you're not going to be caught out by some hideous fees that you weren't aware of. So on my blog, I have an article all about that, which calls out key factors of selling into the US, UK, Europe, and Australia. Other things, one thing quickly, photography, models, content, you'll be very aware of this, but it's costly. So make sure that you're aware of these costs still for wholesale. Great. Okay, so the next, let's now consider your product. So again, the questions at the top, how do you know that you are ready? So when you're presenting your product, again, you need to really make sure that your product has a point of difference. So, be aware of your competitors that are selling on the platforms that you want to approach. What makes you different? Like, why are they going to buy you and not your competitors, or not like for like brands that are already on there? You need to, again, be able to say why. You need to present with such confidence and show why your product has a point of difference. So again, right now, if you're sat there thinking, okay, I don't think I really do, you're not ready. You're simply not ready. If you can't have this, then have a point of difference, you're likely to be rejected. So it's really important that you think about this, because everybody needs a niche, everybody needs a point of difference, and it's really going to help you be successful. So again, a couple of examples. So, for example, this is a brand I work with in the UK, and for them, they have a really lovely story. So, yes, it is premium jewelry. It's sustainably made, so that's not necessarily making them a point of difference. But they actually have a really nice story that links them back to, they do charity work with a business in Africa. But this comes back to her story as a woman in Africa. And that actually the link of the broom, and the broom is seen to be, a woman would sweep, and it's a woman's job to sweep, and a broom is such a practical item. But actually in her jewelry, she is actually translating the broom into a beautiful, luxurious, timeless piece that you wouldn't really think, make that connection. So again, when we're talking USP, what's your story? How can you say that you're, in this case, premium sustainable jewelry is different to anyone else? In this case, this is it. It's all in the design. It's very unique to the brand. That's what makes them different. And for these guys, they're in Australia. They are a premium basic business, but their roots are actually all about their manufacturing, and how they are sustainable is using Pima cotton. So they've chosen to use a very specific, it's farmed in Peru, so they work with a family that's in Peru. They grow the cotton there. They pick it it's a very old traditional process back to I think it's something on that screen, something BC. But yeah, so these guys have that point of difference. It's not just about sustainable, it's what they give back to the community, how they're benefiting lives, they're bringing something out from history to the modern market. So that's some examples of that. So the next few questions to know if you're ready. So this is again talking third-party e-commerce. It's specifically looking at wholesale more so, but still marketplace. So this is a major one. This is really important. So do you have a minimum of 2 drops, as in collections, per season, with a minimum of 25 options? So to be honest, this is me being quite kind and maybe not realistic enough. So I know, for example, Namshi in the Middle East, they actually want like 60 options per drop per collection. So that's just a selling period of 2 months. They want to see 60 options. So it's huge. It's a lot of samples of styles of designs that you're going to have in your, on your rail, so to speak, to be able to be ready. And again, if you don't, so say if your collection right now is 15 pieces, really again, I can't say hands down, but you're highly likely from every brand I've worked with to be rejected because you don't have enough. They want to make it worth their while, and that is simply it. They don't want to waste time with small brands, and I'm talking more the bigger players again. They don't want to waste time with small brands. They want to have enough to generate a return on their investment. So another thing to mention with this is when you're selling wholesale, generally you would show a collection. So let's say you show 60 pieces. And with the buyer at, say, ASOS, she'll look through everything and she will choose what's right for her customer. So she'll make a selection. And generally, and again, this is out of seasons of doing it, generally you can expect a 30% deselection rate. So again, you have to think, if I show 60 and I actually want to get 60, then really you need to be making another 8, you need to be making 80 to get to your 60. So really, the more that you can show without being overwhelming, the more you're likely to take a return and get a good order. The next one, sustainability. We all know its importance beyond just making money, completely just beyond that, but it is a requirement. So for example, Zalando is an obvious one. They won't work with you if you're not sustainable. So really work out now, if you're not sustainable, how can you be? And again, one that I can encourage you to look at, Zalando have a fantastic website, a business portal, so that they're not on their shopping website aside from that. So I think it's called Partners at Zalando. You can message me, I can message you it later. And they have loads of articles that are published, and they actually have requirements of what percentage of, say, organic cotton you have to have in your garment to be able to tag it as sustainable. So it's not just as easy as saying I am, you have to be able to prove it. So again, you don't want to hinder yourself from being able to work with third-party e-commerce if you're not sustainable. So the last one within this is, again, just something that I just want to share with you, is to be successful, sometimes you have to evolve who you are. So by that could be you show your collection to ASOS and, they liked it, but it's not young enough, or your price points are a bit too expensive. Like, what can you do to change stuff to suit them? So that can simply be, you have to go away and change your fabric base to lower your cost price. You have to, introduce a few more like seasonal colors that makes it a bit more exciting and younger. Pretty much, again, I encourage you to be open-minded and to accept feedback. So sometimes it might be a no for now. Go away, see what you can do, and go back. And it's likely that if you listen to their feedback, that you're likely to then get a yes and to be stocked in, again, some of the major players. So just be open-minded. So the next few questions go just a bit more into, I guess you could say it's not the boring stuff, but if again you want to sell in Australia or you want to sell in the US, you really need to know how logistically able are you. So this is a major question. And again, knowing if you're ready to approach third-party e-commerce. So how quickly can you deliver to these places? Who's going to do your shipping? What are the country requirements? So Proposition 65 in California in the US, REACH compliancy in Europe. Like really, it's critical that you actually know your ability and know that you're able to ship to these countries. And all of these, again, need to be written into your strategy. So, you know, if you want to do this in the next 6 months, what do you need to be working on now to be able to ship to, you know, Z country? The next one is, are you able to accept global payments, which I think everybody should be now, so that's just on there. And yeah, the final section is, are you doing this by yourself? Are you a solo entrepreneur, solopreneur, I can't even say it. Who do you need to consult to be able to make this strategy happen, your omnichannel strategy? So within this, it might not be a case of, oh my God, I'm ready right now, everything Carly said I'm saying yes to, you know, let's crack on. It might be, you know, realistic that you write a timeline. What are your milestones? Who do you need to consult in your business to make things happen, to ensure that you are 100% ready to approach wholesale, to give yourself the biggest success rate? So I guess my encouragement to you is really focus on the next year being, you know, where a lot of things may need to happen, but write this strategy, put it into your financials, really make yourself accountable to making this happen. So that's pretty much my final tip, is if it's written, you're more likely to follow through on it as opposed to just something that's up in your brain. Great. So next step, ask yourself, this again is just something that I do actually see with quite a few clients when I've been working with them in wholesale sales. How much do you want it? So again, you could be thinking this is a really silly question, but it's true. So, you know, are you just wanting to give it a quick shot and you're not really sure? I can tell you that it's going to take a lot of work. You might get rejection, which might hurt. It might cost you some money. There might be setbacks and there might be feedback that you don't like. But really, I encourage you, if you really want this, you have to be sure and be willing to stick with it through a year of maybe, you know, rocky roads and things thrown at you, but it will be worth it. Wholesale can be extremely profitable if you do everything right, if you've got your pricing strategy right, if you're really, you know, producing products to their customer base. So it can really, really pay off. So be sure that you want this, because it is not just straightforward. It takes a lot of preparation. So an example, so this is Rack, who they're based in Australia. And yeah, just to run through these guys. So at this stage, oh wait, there, I haven't actually shown you, damn it. I was meant to open that, but pretty much these guys, they have, in fact, I'll open it, I think here, you should be able to see it. Yeah, great. Press. So for these guys, type in their name, you can start to see of all the stockists that they're on Broad Street. So again, any press that they may have received, it's quite obvious the scope of the business. And again, if you look at their Instagram, just talking of like, are they ready? This is again a brand that I work with. Sorry, I should have had this open. So for these guys, huge engagement. So let's look at some older posts, like lots of likes. I guess it's not summer here at the moment, but generally like heavily commented on. They've got lots of followers. They do different engagement with oh gosh, not celebrities, influencers. So this is a brand that you could quite easily see, okay, they're ready in the sense of presence, they're ready in the sense that they're already selling with a few different businesses, they've got some good press here in Australia. So for these guys, a very quick example, this is how you can start to understand, are they ready or not? Okay, so I don't know why that's not doing the full presentation. There we go, back to that. Full screen. Okay, perfect. So that's just a very quick example. So now we're at the end of this topic. Answering the question, do you know if you're ready? So at this stage, I probably may have triggered some things in your mind to think, oh, I'm not too sure if I am, or you might be thinking, hell yeah, I'm ready for this. So if you're not, don't worry. Write down your list of what you need to do to get ready. And I promise you, because I see it, to succeed in third-party e-commerce, it's all about timing. So again, I've got a document that I'm going to share with you later that you can read on this, but get yourself ready. Know when is the right month to approach third-party e-commerce. If you get all of these things, all of your eggs aligned, then you're highly likely to be successful. Great. So the outcome, I think I've talked about this, but yeah, be prepared is the easiest way to say it. So topic 3, so how to actually find the right third-party platform for your fashion brand. So again, this is something that I know a lot of brands struggle with, or, you sit there and you think, how the hell do I start? So let's go through pretty much, again, a step-by-step process of how you can find the right platform for your fashion brand. So really, it starts with perception. So again, take that step back. And it actually, in fact, can start with, jot down your top 5 platforms that you want to work with, and then start to answer these questions. So, for example, if you are selling, let's just think of something quickly, it's footwear for back to school, it's practical, it's actually quite expensive. It's made from vegan leather or something. It's a bit niche. Is ASOS going to be the right platform for you? You could probably answer that no, because ASOS has a lower price point. Its customers aren't necessarily back to school focused. They're more about the leisure side, the weekend wear. It's not really, the biggest advocate of like vegan and sustainability. So take that step back and just think of perception. So think of the perceived value, the perceived customer base, the perceived audience of your customer, and see, does that align to the platforms that you're wanting to sell with? So again, answer this honestly, don't kid yourself, because again, think of it like matchmaking. You want to find the perfect boyfriend or husband or whatever for yourself. Like, how well are you suited together? So it's really important as a first step. And again, it's an exciting kind of bit of research for you to do, because if again you find something that you and this platform really resonate with, then that's something that you can use in your pitch, in your conversation when you're approaching the platform, to be like, did you know that we both sponsored this event? Or did you, whatever it might be. So really find the answer to the perception of your brand and them. Another one, which is really obvious, I hope, where are your competitors selling? So you might be thinking, oh, I don't want to sell where they are. Why would I do that? It's a crowded market already. No, 100% not. Because again, if your competitors on there, they're on there for a reason, because your audience is there. They're obviously selling well there. The platform obviously wants that product type, that obviously they've got an interest in it. So if your competitor's there, there's a reason. So why not? Why couldn't you be there? Because again, you're not copying your competitors. You're in a similar arena, but you're still offering something that's different. So I'd encourage you to look at, again, your competitors in the country as well as your global competitors, and they'll present so many ideas to you. It's crazy. It's fantastic. So always refresh this data every season and be very aware of it. But also when you're doing this research, always be thinking, how can I be better than them? How can I offer something that they're not doing? So for example, something like, check your competitors' sizing availability. Do they stop at size 14? Could you then offer an extended range exclusively for this wholesale partner? That's a fantastic sales tactic that you could think of in your pitch to the platform. An example, so I was going to go through it, but Pretty Posh, these guys, let's see if it does it. I should have opened all of these, apologies. So for these guys, they are, it's high-end lingerie. They also have swimwear too, but for these guys, thinking of perceived value. So it's quite sexy. It's not overly too young or too mature. And yeah, within it, they've got some hair accessories, they've got a hat, etc. So really instantly thinking like, who would this be suited to? So the price points aren't ridiculous. So actually it's not too overpriced for ASOS, for example. Could this fit with Selfridges? Potentially, because there's that younger audience that sits within Selfridges, but again, is it potentially being perceived as a little bit, porno? Is it a little bit too saucy? Is it a little bit too trashy? That's again something that you'd have to start weighing up of the perception of the Selfridges customer versus the perception of the ASOS customer versus the perception of the brand's customer. So they're questions that you can start looking at, and you could open up Selfridges on the side and start to see, gosh, is this type of product actually there? No, bodices are there, but actually matching it back with this kind of like tutu styles actually quite unique. Maybe I'd have an opportunity to find kind of your competitive advantage versus the other brands. Okay, so that's a brief explanation. I think I've just lost my there we go, back again, sorry. Cool. So the next questions, in fact, I've just answered it. I forgot I'd done the slide. So here are just actually doing the work. Checking platforms, categories, price points, competitors. So really here for Pretty Posh, who I just showed you on the site. You look at who are the competitors, like who's on there. So it's like Agent Provocateur, La Perla, etc., and start to see where they're sold. So as we can see here, Zalando, ASOS, Namshi. So this is like really easy research for you guys to do to find opportunities for your brands. Great. So yeah, the next tip that I have is, before moving to the next questions, really I'd encourage you, when you're looking to approach third-party platforms, when you know you're ready, when you're wanting to select them, I'd encourage you to focus on a territory at a time. So by territory, I don't necessarily mean it could be as singular as just the UK. You could do UK and Europe because, obviously Brexit again, but there's connections. It's not too huge a landmass. Or you could focus on the US, that could be North and South, whatever, but a territory, meaning that you're not going to go and say launch in Africa, in the UK, in the US, all in one season. I again can promise you now, it's going to be a huge headache for you. It's going to cost you a lot. It's just going to be spreading your resources way too thin. I'd encourage you, when you're starting out and growing, that you put all your efforts into one territory at a time, and just pretty much don't overload yourself, and just focus on building your presence there and just nailing it. And again, going back to the first topic, in this omnichannel approach, again, if you're selling in multiple channels in one territory, you have the option, say, if you've got a bestseller in Next and you've got stock in ASOS, you have the ability to move it. It's not just stuck there. Or again, you could shave units off, ASOS's Next repeat order and give it to Next. You are in control of your own operation. So again, if you focus your efforts on one territory, it can be very beneficial when you need to move stock and again, make more sales. So the next kind of step in this, how to find the right platform, the big one goes back to, again, really knowing your capabilities, which was part of the first question, the first bit too, are you ready? But now it's a bigger decision that you need to make. So you will know if you're pro wholesale or pro marketplace, or maybe you don't. But really, they're the two different operating models. In my opinion, dropshipping isn't an option, because dropshipping really comes down to not being a brand owner. You are literally taking someone else's product and you're selling it, and that's the model you're picking and dropping. In being a brand, being in control of your, brand voice, your product, like what's happening, you've got wholesale or marketplace. So really, from my opinion, again, everybody has their own opinion generally on this topic, but for wholesale, I would encourage you to look at this model specifically overseas. And why? I've got some examples more so, but wholesale, you sell to the platform. You actually lose control once you've sold it. So that means you don't control the pricing that you sell to the customer at. You don't control promotions. You have literally sold it to the customer. So why I encourage this overseas and not locally is, say if you're based in the UK, you've sold to Next, to ASOS, to Selfridges, and you can't control their sell price. That's just it if it's in wholesale. So they could be selling it for like £20 less than your product. They could be doing a promotion which doesn't align to your promotions. You can't control it. So a lot of people find that, as a disadvantage. So I would encourage you to focus on marketplace in your own territory, in your own market, literally country, and look to do wholesale overseas. Again, you can make the decision, your business better, but that's just something that, again, is a tip. So just to help you, again, from my experience doing wholesale since like 2012, these are just pros and cons that I can share with you guys. So wholesale, clean, it's sale no return. As soon as they tell you they want 100 pieces, you've got a PO, you've got a purchase order that's a legally binding contract. Once they buy it from you, it's sale no return, no leftover stock at the end of the season, no markdown, no returns, etc. So really, really good. You control the sell price, so how much you decide the retail price is. So this goes back to the pricing strategy that I mentioned in the beginning. So if you need to inflate your prices a little bit in Europe, you can tell them that it's €2 more expensive. That's fine. That's completely within your control. Again, you get buying power, so you get a lower cost price because you get more units. Generally in wholesale, there's zero marketing costs that they ask you for. So what do I mean by that? In marketplace, a lot of your success would come from you marketing your product, i.e. you spending money, pushing your sales because it's your stock to sell. When it's wholesale, it's not the case. So you've sold it to them. It's in their interest to sell the stock that they bought. Omnichannel goes without saying. Of course, it would be an omnichannel strategy. For wholesale, it doesn't cost anything to set up. So what I mean by that, with marketplace, you could have integration costs where they have to integrate your back-end systems. There could be just general costs in actually getting your product live on their website. Again, in wholesale, you don't have to worry about the admin side. You just focus on selling and producing more collection and showing it. They deal with the admin and the upload. Again, a huge one that I love with wholesale is, say, let me give you an example again. So Zalando is based in Germany, and you have two options of them. You could sell to them in wholesale, or you could sell to them in marketplace. And if you do marketplace, they do have a secondary option, but if you do marketplace, you have to meet their criteria. You have to ship to a customer within their timelines. You have to pretty much be this amazing, huge marketplace like Zalando is. However, if you use wholesale, you don't have that expectation. You don't have to pay for the most expensive shipping because Zalando cover everything. So it's advantageous to use wholesale because it's a hell of a lot quicker to deliver to a customer than you could probably ever do as a smaller fashion brand. Wholesale gives you the opportunity to try new ideas. So again, what you sell on your own website, great, perfect, it's working for you. However, what you sell in wholesale, it can be different. You don't have to show them the exact same product. So it's an opportunity to try new ideas, in a whole new market. And generally, once you gain one account, you're likely to get more. It's a lot easier for you to say, I'm stocked on so-and-so to get more. And yeah, you get to work with buyers that are experts in their arena. So it's super insightful to build these relationships with these wholesale buyers. So cons, just to be fair, so I'm not just persuading you. Payment terms, I've already mentioned this. It's pretty far out, so be aware of that. You can't control their sell price. So you can control the price you sell it to them at, but you can't control their sell price. So remember that, hence why I've mentioned it's advantageous to do it overseas. Some platforms, this is mainly in the US, because the US pretty much does have its own unique wholesale market, but the US can ask for a rebate at the end of the season. So you know how I've mentioned about sale no return? The US tends to have, if you don't hit certain KPIs, so for example, if you don't hit a sell-through rate of say like 60%, they can actually come back to you at the end of the season and ask for you for compensation, pretty much, to say, I need help with markdown costs because you didn't hit your sell-through. So when you're reading contracts or you're looking at commercial deals, just be really aware of these clauses because you don't want to catch yourself out. In wholesale, as mentioned, you can lose some control because you're selling your stock to the platform and you don't have control over the page layout and how you're portrayed. Generally, big accounts. So for example, ASOS, I know one of their criteria is you need to have a hell of a lot of Instagram followers. So you really do need to be an established brand. For ASOS specifically, that's in a very much so in a PR social media sense. So just be really aware of pretty much, again, your matchmaking, the platforms that you're going to work with, what they might want from you. Other things to call out: to succeed in wholesale, expect to start to be more profitable in year 2. Year 1 is about breaking even and making a bit, but it's not going to be huge in the beginning. Really, you just need to be selling a good quantity in wholesale to drive your sales and profit up. So again, that comes back to yourself, to you guys, that if your intentions to only ever be a small brand, i.e. a few options, that's probably not going to be the right model for you. Maybe consider Marketplace as a different operating model to drive some sales. Another thing to call out, a con of wholesale overseas specifically, it's hard to react to good sellers because obviously you've got shipping timelines and we don't want to be airing everything. And yeah, business operations in a new country can be tricky. So just be aware of VAT registrations in Europe or the UK, etc. And yeah, just fees involved with being overseas and working in wholesale. So yeah, with fees specifically, wholesale can charge, as can Marketplace, to be honest, but going again into third party, you just need to be aware of the contracts, read the contracts, make sure you can hit their, dream ideal situation, because if not, they'll charge you. They charge you for everything. So there's some cons just to call out. So hopefully you've got a real good understanding now of what wholesale actually is in a realistic view. So I feel like I'm talking quite a lot. So Marketplace pros. So just again, so you can really make a good decision. So Marketplace pays you a hell of a lot quicker. So you generally can get paid within 7 to 30 days, which is good. You control the pricing, as I've mentioned, which again can be an advantage in your home country. There's flexibility with omnichannel because with Marketplace, you don't have to, sit a load of stock in a warehouse. You can actually have it in your own and just simply ship as and when it's needed because you're doing the fulfillment, so that it's a lot more agile. It gives you the opportunity to have a better omnichannel strategy, have, lean stock model. With marketplaces, you can integrate. So if you're with Shopify, generally that's like the best one for free integration. So it can be done quite easily. And yeah, with marketplace, you control what it looks like. You control the page, you control the product layout, your branding, everything. So you can really make sure it mirrors back to your platform. And that goes back to my first point in the topic one, that it's really important that you have this uniformed look for your brand across whatever channel your customer shops your product on. So that is a real good advantage of marketplace. So cons for marketplace, as mentioned, you can have marketing expectations. You could be expected to spend money because at the end of the day, hello.
Sorry, I didn't like the last slide that you was on. I didn't finish taking some notes.
I'll go, yeah, back. I'll go back.
Sorry.
That one. No, it's all good. Is anyone there to give me a time check? I don't have my mobile.
Hey, Connie, it's just gone 10 o'clock.
Okay. Oh, I've got loads of time. Okay, great.
Just to say to everyone, though, we will be sending you the recording. So anything you have missed, like you can absolutely watch again in your own time.
Cool. Yeah. Very good. I think then on that base, shall I click to the next one?
Yeah, I think keep going.
Yeah. Okay, great. So cons, with marketplace, so high marketing costs, I already mentioned that. So just be really aware. You might be thinking, oh my God, the commercials are better in marketplace, but you're expected to spend more on marketing. Lack of visibility. So what this means, again, some of you may or may not be aware, but obviously when you're looking on, let's say Zalando, when it says bestseller or, most recommended or whatever the sort functions might be, they're not true. Like it's all paid. So to sit at the top in the, non-natural filters, really for that, it's marketing spend. It's brands that will pay to push themselves to the top of the pages. So that is very much going to be the case if you're working in marketplace. So if you're wholesale, Zalando, I'm just going to use them as an example, they would be heavily invested in selling their stock because they bought it from you. So they would naturally position their stock higher in the search function. But for you in marketplace, you're likely to sit at the bottom. So again, in marketplace can be good because you can make some good money because the commission can be lower. However, generally you're going to have to spend money to push your product in front of the customer's face in the politest sense. So just be aware of that. Again, there can be fees in integration costs, dependent on your platform choice. And yeah, with marketplaces, some could expect you to put your stock in their warehouse. A major example of this is Next. Next is actually, again, this is from experience, a bit of a nightmare to work with. They tend to lose your stock. And again, their expectation is that your stock has to sit in their warehouse. So that means that a whole season, a whole 6 months, you do have opportunity to pick stuff up, but let's just look at a worse picture that it can sit there. So, it loses its selling window, it could, get lost, it could get damaged. So just be aware of marketplaces, what their expectation is of where your stock sits and ships from. For marketplace, again, it's more manual. It requires you to do more. And what I mean by that is you might have to upload your product, do your long line descriptions, like pretty much manage your shop front as you would on your own website. So again, that could require you to pay somebody, it could be an extra dedicated resource dependent on how many marketplaces you're operating on. So just be aware that it does tend to have a lot more manual admin work than wholesale does. And I guess with this, which kind of links in, is sharing assets. So marketplace generally, again, requires you to share imagery that matches the marketplace's requirements. So again, like Amazon versus the Iconic. I'm trying to think of who else. I don't think Namshi's is bad, but they all have different colored backgrounds of the imagery that you have to meet to be able to share your assets correctly that meets, their criteria. So again, just this admin, sometimes a bit of time and money required to suit each marketplace's need. With Marketplace, a downside, which I guess is something that I don't like as much, is the lack of human interaction. So, with wholesale, you'll have a sales appointment, you'll work with a buyer that's specific on your category, and you get to have that feedback, feedback loop. With Marketplace, you may have an account director depending on how big your brand is, but you don't get the human interaction. You get data, you get to see how your sales are performing, but you don't get that on the floor feedback. So that's just something to be aware of. It could suit you or it could not. So that's another thing to highlight. Again, I think I've mentioned this, your stock could get lost. Just be very aware of that. Once you hand it over, it can go into a bit of a black hole in Marketplace. And yeah, some marketplaces expect you to ship stock their way. So an example of that is, again, probably quite a few, but The Iconic, they will give you their poly bags. So you might think, oh, Marketplace is better because I ship the stock, therefore I can sneak things in the parcel, like a freebie or a voucher or whatever. You actually can be quite rigidly held to ship goods in the way that the marketplace dictates to you, really. So just again, it's not all, just be very aware, pretty much. Be very, very aware. Ask questions when you're looking to sign a deal, or explore when you're talking to to a partner like ASOS again. Explore the options, like, is wholesale better for you? Ask questions to ASOS, like, do they, all of the things I've pretty much put on the slides, you could ask questions and have an open, honest conversation, and you can then work out which operating model is best for you. That's an option. Or you can obviously go through all of these points that I've put on the slides today and really start to say, okay, Nat, like, I know I simply want wholesale, therefore that's what I'm always going to strive for. So you can do it in a few different ways, but again, one thing, as a kind of another tip, is really for a lot of these platforms around the world, if you ask for wholesale, that is then it's kind of like at the top. So wholesale's like the dream. You can always ask for wholesale. You don't get it, they'll offer you Marketplace. But pretty much once you go into Marketplace with a platform, it's quite hard to then move to wholesale. So kind of think of, go for the best first. If you don't get that, you could always settle for Marketplace. That's another way to realistically look at it, and as a kind of a tip also. So yes, maybe, for you, strive for the top, go for wholesale, be happy to take marketplaces like as a backup option. That's generally, again, something that happens quite frequently. Great. So yeah, that's pros and cons, both of the operating models. Hopefully now you really know which is going to be better for you. And also with this, which I don't know if I've got it on this slide. Yeah, one thing, it's not on this slide, but one thing to note is that a lot of marketplaces, so I'm trying to think of an obvious one, which I guess really obvious being the big guys, the Amazons again, a lot of platforms. So when you're going to answer the which platform is right for me, a lot of platforms don't always offer wholesale and marketplace. They may just offer marketplace. So again, when you're doing your research to try and work out which platform's right for you, try and find that information out, or, go on to forums, find people like me to ask the question, so I could tell you quite easily, what they'd offer and what's highly likely. But again, be aware that you're not always actually going to be able to get wholesale because they might just not offer it. So that's just kind of something again. But if you're educated now, knowing what you want, then you can just, have a realistic approach to your conversations now. Great. So other things when you're trying to find the right platform for your fashion brand. So really ask yourself, and it's actually kind of a split decision, is generally what I tend to find with fashion brands. What do you want to actually achieve from doing this? So a lot of brands could want to use third-party e-commerce as a sheer marketing act. It's all about brand awareness. It's all about getting my brand into a new country, learning lessons, learning about an audience, gaining a few sales, cool, but it's actually just about brand awareness and growing in a market that you might choose to invest in the future. So it's a bit of a publicity act. Or you might be thinking, no, what I want from this venture into wholesaler marketplace is to make money. That's my sole reason for doing it. So again, when you're choosing a platform, this is actually a really important question. So who you choose to partner with could actually give you simply brand awareness. And then you could choose somebody else that I'm going to go with these because it's going to generate sales for me. So with that, one thing here, I guess I've given some examples on the screen. So if you're going for brand awareness as your strategy, you would go into a territory and you would go really wide on your channels. So you would say launch on 10 because you want to get known. You want your brand to be known to loads of different new customers in that market, in that territory. So go quite wide on your channels. You'd maybe think about just doing marketplace because you can just get it out there quite quickly. It's generally easier to secure marketplace deals, and that would be your approach. If you're going for increased sales, you would really, really focus on the question that we talked about earlier, which is all about finding that perfect match, that perfect partner. And you would really find where your audience is and where they're shopping, where your competitors are, and really focus on nailing that commercial deal. So knowing wholesaler marketplace, knowing your pricing strategy, like going to the table and pitching your brand with this USP to the perfect platform that's going to be exactly where your audience are, which should then drive healthy sales. So it's pretty critical to really work out what you're wanting to achieve from this partnership, which will help you again to work out which platforms are right in helping you to achieve your goal. Great. So another one which kind of actually links back to it, but this is something that I had at Frevenue, which is here in Australia. So they really predominantly were store-based. They were a store-based business. And so for those guys, they wanted to do wholesale to actually test a market before they opened stores. So they would use third-party e-commerce because it's pretty cheap, hey? It doesn't cost much to set up, and do tests in different territories around the world, Russia and the US, South Africa, etc. And that's how they tested a market to see if the customers were interested in their product, to learn lessons before they then opened their own operation. So that's talking, an example, and that's bricks and mortar. But obviously you can do the exact same. So you right now on your direct consumer website might be just shipping to a few territories because you don't know about other markets around the world, or you might have ambition to launch, .de or .fr, like different language websites in the future. So you could use this third-party e-commerce to test a market. So that's just something, again, that you could write into your strategy, and it's just an idea that I've shared with you guys. Great. So final pieces of advice for this topic: how to find the right platform. So really, this is, again, quite a major thing, but there's a lot of, I don't think I can swear, but a lot of crazy things happening in the world right now. So really be aware of what is happening. So in fact, I should have deleted that. That was an old one there, Hong Kong protest. But we all know what's happening in Afghan at the moment in this last week. But really be aware of what is happening in the world, because do you want to get caught up in that, in shipping your goods or where your manufacturing is based. Like, really be aware from a very global aspect, from a sales, from a manufacturing, partnerships. Are you going to, be affected in any way? So be smart with the countries, the territories, again, that you choose to, consider launching on, because it can obviously, again, make or break. It's quite obvious. So within this, there's McKinsey, which you may or may not know. I type it in the comments, but for example, those guys, fantastic at generating reports for our industry. And that's really quite heavily talking about the e-commerce, what's trending, consumer mindsets, habits, etc. So really, use data sources out there to really understand which markets are trending, which markets aren't, which markets pose risk, and just be really aware, and again, when you're choosing the right platform, about these different factors. And again, this comes back to this strategy of actually writing it down, mapping it out, what makes sense in this year, what makes sense next year, etc. So yeah, map it out. Great. So in fact, I always forget what I'm about to say. So as I mentioned, shortlist, write it down, definitely. So write a shortlist of, who you're considering. And these are pretty much just questions. Again, this is simply a framework for you to now fill in. So say at the top, you've got a shortlist of 5, and actually go through writing your answers. So ASOS, what's your goal? Is it to get marketing from them, or is it about sales? And really start to write your answers, and this will start to create your strategy. So this is obviously doing it a different way. How many platforms in year 1? Which markets will you do first? The cost, the pricing. So I won't read through these, but you'll have the slide to take away, and just really write your answers. Keep this safe, and this will start to build a strategy. So this is again bringing it back to what we've just talked about. So RAK, I showed you online. I showed you their Instagram very quickly. So they are very, very active. So thinking of which platforms right for them. They're based in Australia. So I know their interest, their market that they wanted to approach was the UK and Europe. So I already knew that. That was like their goal. So for these guys, looking at their general, I guess if I come off this so you can see it, looking at their general USP, we can see it's very bright, it's like young, it's fun, it's got that, the younger Gen Z appeal to it. It would totally work. Their USP is bigger bust. So that's critical. So really thinking of what would be right for these guys. So assuming that they know that they can launch in the UK and Europe, who else would be applicable? So Bravissimo specifically deals with bigger bust ladies. Perfect match, great. It doesn't necessarily have the huge young market, but it's a perfect spot on match for the niche. Looking at the USP, there's a bucket hat here. ASOS is just driving that younger market in the UK. So they would be perfect. And then thinking of a European contender and going for the bigger guys first, there's Zalando, and why Zalando works. Again, I'm not showing everything, but sustainable, perfect. These guys are too. Bigger bust, Zalando has a huge curves market. Again, they have a younger audience. They have more like 25 to 35, but still it fits in with these platforms. So that's not me answering all of the questions at all. I'm doing this in a very quick manner, but really, that's kind of just how I can share with you quite quickly how you'd look at a brand and really know about their background, their USP, and start to work out like which platforms would be suitable. And really, again, I should be answering these criteria. And I know their competitors, etc. But this is just quite a quick example. And obviously you can go and look at these guys more to start to understand why I've said these platforms would be right for them. Cool. So the outcome. So that was topic 3. So now you should feel really confident with a process to follow to actually go and find the platforms for you. And once you've found those platforms, you should be really confident with knowing which operating model is right for you. So that's wholesale or marketplace. So just quickly to recap, we have an understanding about omnichannel. We know its importance. We now know if you're ready to go into third-party e-commerce. Great. If you're not, you've got action points. If you are, you now know how to decide which platform is right for you and which operating model is right for you also. So the next one, topic 4, is we're going to run through 10 fashion platforms that you should be selling a fashion brand on. So these are just key call outs pretty much. Some of my favorites, some of the ones that I would encourage you to consider. And this is simply to help you to increase your sales growth as quickly as you can. So running through them and the reasons why. So Zalando is literally probably my favorite. I feel like I should have affiliate marketing links with them. I just love them. So Zalando, they are, as I've already mentioned, based in Germany. They currently ship to, well, they actually ship globally. That's incorrect. They have 17 different platforms, different country-specific platforms. So they have a really solid presence in different markets around Europe. So what does that actually mean to you, just so you're aware? So for example, they still accept cash payments. They'll still do unique delivery concepts specific to that country because they know what their customers want. So Zalando has a huge presence in Europe. It is the #1 platform, and it's just growing. It's astonishing how quickly they're growing and pretty much penetrating that market. So these stats probably, again, could have been refreshed, not just looking at Q1, but looking at more of the year, the half year mark. But yeah, they're huge. If you are a sustainable brand, Zalando is for you. They are a huge supporter of sustainable brands. And yes, we could have, we could critique them and say they could be doing more, etc. But versus a lot of them platforms, Zalando is huge. So that would be a big advantageous point for you guys to get in front of them a lot easier if you have a sustainable factor of your business. And really for these guys, you can do marketplace or wholesale. So both are available. With Zalando, they offer, if you do marketplace, they offer a Zalando, I can't remember what it's called. It's like an abbreviated one now. They offer a fulfillment solution for you pretty much. So that's fantastic. And generally for these guys, their payment terms are quite high, unfortunately. You can expect 90 to 120 easily. And generally their commercials with wholesale, they can be anything up to 75% that they can ask off your retail price. So a bit scary. But they are huge. And for you guys based in the UK, I would really, really encourage you to consider approaching them because they have a huge customer base pretty much. So the next one, ASOS. So ASOS acquired Topshop, part of the Arcadia group this year. So it's really had a pivotal effect to the business, which the main kind of part of this is the Topshop acquisition has helped with their US presence. It's helped anyway increase their traffic. They've gained a whole kind of broader audience because of the data and again those specific brands. Talking of the US, ASOS is partnered with Nordstrom. So again, in the US side of Zalando, ASOS's business is really just growing. So if you are to work with ASOS, they actually place an order with you for the UK, for Germany, and for the US. So that's how their business is kind of spread. And what I mean by that is you would be expected to ship a proportion of, UK order, German order, US order. So they really do have a bigger presence than just the UK. I guess I've got that percentage on the screen so you can actually see the rough ratio. So it's still, predominantly the UK, but they are growing overseas, which is really exciting. And for any fashion brand that doesn't sell to the US now, the US can be really complicated. There's EDI compliance, there's different labeling, there's different testing requirements. It's actually quite complicated. So if you can sell into the US via ASOS that's based in the UK, that's really pretty good, because you're skipping a lot of the hard work and you're using ASOS to get into that market. So pretty impressive. Farfetch, to not just talk about high street brands all the time. So Farfetch is, again, just going from strength to strength. Farfetch is doing pretty well in the sense of it's still trying to be a bit more unique with its assortments. It's not just shoving everybody on there. There's a bit more of a criteria that you would need to tick the list of. So really for Farfetch, it's about having, again, this USP, this game changer point of difference. They won't just take you unless you've got something unique. And I guess really, again, for Farfetch, it's you'd have to work quite hard on your PR and having some presence, so that would be important. And for these guys, interestingly, which I don't know if you would have known, but predominantly their shoppers are in the US, Russia, and then the UK. So they're actually the top 3 markets for Farfetch. And again, interestingly, a lot of their traffic comes from YouTube. So if you're quite a community, I was about to say a virtual, but lots of content. If you do lots of content and interaction on socials, then Farfetch could suit your brand quite well. So the next ones that I encourage you to consider, Zalora. So Zalora is based in Southeast Asia. And really for these guys, they are well suited to fashion brands. They're not the biggest cash driver like the last ones I've just mentioned. They're huge businesses and can bring you a lot of sales. Zalora is smaller, it's more refined. However, they have a really good spread of 7 countries across Southeast Asia that you would ship to. So for market penetration, again, these guys aren't isolated. They're spread quite wide. Asia, obviously this is mainly China, but there's again they touch on Indonesia. So these markets are really they're hugely increasing. We've all got to look aside from the Western world. We've all got to look at the markets that are up and coming. So Zalora, for example, has a good presence in Southeast Asia, which can give you the opportunity to get brand presence quite easily. And as mentioned, just to reiterate, Zalora is actually a beautiful platform that's fashion focused, and it's not too expensive. It's got a bit of a mix of things, mainly high street price points, but they're fashion focused, as opposed to the Alibabas and the Shopee and the really flash sale dominated platforms that are quite ugly. Zalora is predominantly fashion based, just for you to know why it's important. So in Australia, the biggest fashion platform is The Iconic. Goes without saying, there's really nothing that competes with it still. So there are bigger platforms like Catch of the Day and eBay that drive the most traffic in general e-commerce. But for fashion, if you want to come to Australia and launch here, The Iconic's the one for you, pretty much. So as you can see, 93% of its shoppers are Australian, so it very much so dominates our market. It's the only one really for the biggest presence. And then not just looking, so pretty much these, I've spread you a bit around the world so far, looking at specific fashion third-party platforms. So now looking at the other ones, Instagram, I'm sure you guys will expect me to say this, but really Instagram, it goes without saying, you need to create shoppable posts. everything you do, you know, across the channel, all different variations of stories or just normal posts or reels, etc. However you can make it shoppable, link back to your products, etc., do it. All of us spend so much time on our mobiles that anything that you can do to benefit from that and generate money, definitely do it. So Instagram is something that you just really shouldn't pass up on. Pinterest. So again, I'm assuming because everyone's fashion based, we've all got boards and accounts on Pinterest, but Pinterest is just going from strength to strength. So again, Pinterest is something that you can monetize. So you can, again, make your posts shoppable. So everything is, I guess, it's shoppable now. It's not just a photo, it's a photo that you can buy. So again, consider Pinterest for advertising, put some marketing spend there. There's a huge audience that's only increasing, and more people using it aside from, you know, shopping. But I think it's actually going to become a channel that's going to pivot more so into, I guess, even like Instagram is really pivoting to be a commerce channel, that it's actually just really going to become a method to shop on for all of us. And it's not just about the social media interaction communications, it's actually really pivoting towards being a commerce site. So Pinterest definitely monetize on that. Facebook, again, an obvious one. It goes without saying, but it is the number one platform. So for sure, how to use this channel. So Facebook ads. There's loads of different short courses, things that you can learn online to do with Facebook ads, but definitely don't pass up on using it. It's connected to Instagram, so it's a seamless kind of journey. Again, you can link it straight back to your store, so everything can be shoppable, but Facebook is really good. And especially when we're linking back to the omni-channel factor, Facebook is great because you've got Messenger, you've got chat, you know, bot, so to speak, yourself, as much as you might program it to use ManyChat, which is a chat bot, but really use it for your customer service. It's a great channel that you can link to your website, and just again think of this omnichannel seamless journey for your customers. Amazon. So we've kind of referenced it a little bit, but some love it, some hate it. But yeah, it really is. In the US, it really is the channel, unfortunately, but it's true. So if you want to break into the US market, I would heavily encourage you to consider Amazon. And the reason why is it is the number one search engine above Google. So people go onto Amazon to search for information to start their product search. So, you know, they type into their, I don't know, like a specific brand, but, you know, party dress or whatever, as opposed to typing that into Google, it goes into Amazon. So it is huge. And obviously, Amazon in the US ships still worldwide, but it's really a key factor to work with those guys when you're looking to break into the US market. And if you're interested, once you engage with Amazon, there's actually opportunities for you to store your stock with them, and they can then ship to other platforms. So they're actually integrated to other third-party platforms, commerce sites online, that you then could have your stock selling on other channels through Amazon. So it's a bit of a windy web, but it is actually really interesting. And again, for brands specifically based in the UK, it's quite hard to ship into the US. So consider Amazon. It's true. And then the last one, which I've mentioned it in the beginning, I said move over direct to consumer, but it is so important. Don't give up on it. I'm encouraging you to consider third-party e-commerce to broaden your horizons, to break into this seamless omnichannel customer journey, but don't give up on your direct to consumer. So with that, think of how you can strengthen it. So think of how you can do this click and collect. Like there's so many different options out there. Be inventive. How can you build the community? So think back to Nike. Like what more could you be doing to engage and build this like following? So I guess always the way to say it's like, who's your tribe? Like who are your people? Like, you know, make sure you're really working hard in that channel. Don't just expect them to come to you. Be creative. And yeah, don't just rely again on Facebook ads. Think of how else that you can drive and build that direct to consumer operation that you've no doubt already got. So yeah, so they are my call out 10 platforms, kind of going a bit around the world, as I mentioned, but they're, yeah, important and big platforms that will help you to be successful in those specific territories. So there we go. And I don't know what's, oops, click. So one thing, in fact, yeah, I do have, I need to actually update my hyperlink. So I might have to send this to you, Jenny, straight after this, but this is on my website pretty much. So I have a running list of all channels that I work with. So pretty much this list is broken into the country, so the territory, well, the country specifically, all of these different platforms, and then across the top it breaks it down into fashionability, so whether or not it's like high end, it's basics, it will break it down into if they have sustainable product or not. It gives you an indication of their price point, so if they're, you know, entry or exit, so, you know, more designer. So pretty much it's free. Download it off my website, and that again is a starting point. So if you're completely clueless about platforms, you know, in certain territories, this is a starting point for you. So grab yourself it. And outcome, here we go, just move our faces. So yeah, hopefully you will have then decided who you want to approach. So yeah, the next steps is to prepare for your pitch. So you will hopefully by the end of this masterclass have stuff to go and look into, lots of ideas, but you'll be clearer, I hope, with knowing if you're ready to approach wholesale. And really the next thing, as I mentioned in the very beginning, I think it was in topic 1, that it's all about timing. It really, really is. So if you hands on your heart can say you're ready, you know, you've got all your eggs in order again, then really it's about preparing for your pitch. So this again is a link which I'll update, but it's on my blog post. So again, it's free. It doesn't require you to do anything but click. And this breaks it down step by step how to actually prepare for a pitch. So what do I mean by that? So let's say you're ready, you know your territory is the UK, you've got your, you know, 50 plus options, you're confident, you've got a point of difference, blah, 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 all of that. How do you actually approach ASOS? Like if that's who it is. So this blog post literally talks you through how to actually pitch to a platform. So it covers like what a brand book looks like. So a brand book's it's a stronger lookbook. And it pretty much, yeah, walks you through again a step-by-step process of how to then actually approach these platforms when you're ready. So it's really important. Honestly, timing, preparation, it's going to make you successful. So please, please, please take the time. Don't rush into this. And if you do that, you're more likely to get a yes as opposed to a no. Great. I think maybe that's just another blog post. I have lots of information on my blog. I'm a sharer, let's be honest. I just can talk for England. So this is another one. This is all about timings. So this was looking ahead to next year, spring, summer 22, how to actually pitch within the timelines of wholesale. So again, really important if you want to just go for it next year, this blog post will help. Great, that is it. That's a thank you from me. So if you want to email me, of course, that's all my info, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, it's just my name. But yeah, thank you, everybody.